I'm Debbie.
And I'm Alison.
And we're the Poltergals. Spooky.
Hi, I'm Alison.
And I'm Debbie.
And we're
The Poltergals. Welcome back to another episode of The Poltergals. We have an exciting announcement for the month of Spooktober. Allison, what are we doing?
Well, we're going to be talking about some haunted locations per usual.
Yep, that's our thing. But
there's a twist.
Oh, what's the twist? I love a good twist.
So, we are going to be talking about locations that some kind of murder case happened.
True crime. So it is a Poltergals Haunted True Crime Edition.
Whoop, and we're going to be doing this series for our 1-year anniversary.
That's right. We've already been doing this for a year, guys. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
So we figured to twist things up and to make things a little bit spicier, I guess.
And spookier.
Yeah, spicier and spookier. Some of these we have done before, but we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about them and give you more of the case file than just the history.
Yeah.
So a lot of it we have talked about before, but we're just going to try to skim over that as much as we can and talk about the actual murder case.
Ooh, yeah. And so, like I said, we're going to be doing some redos. We're going to be doing some new news, and we're going to be having fun here.
Yeah.
So the first one we figured we should cover is the Villisca House, because we kind of did that one in like tandem with the Whaley House, just as like little blurbs before. So we went back and did more research, and now we're going to cover like the case file, true crime aspect. I'm going to go over all the suspects in the case. And this first one we're doing is the Villisca House, like I said. So what makes this one super special is because it's actually a cold case.
Oh,
that's right. Put that baby in a freezer and pop it out. It's time.
Oh, no. So it's okay to put babies in freezers.
No!
But, okay, this is the Villisca House. So, of course, I'm going to bring that statement back up.
No.
Because this is the exact
This is the house that started Allison's obsession with putting children in haunted places.
Or veterans.
Veterans. That was Baker Hotel. But yeah. So Allison's going to run through the history like last time, go over really, really fast, and then I'm going to jump into the case and the suspects and all the sneaky little linky stuff that happened in the back, and then we'll wrap it up with the hauntings. Again, we've already covered this, so if you guys want to just go listen to a breeze through on our previous episode of the Villisca House, it was posted back in like June.
Yeah, it's been 2 or 3 months. So,
yeah, it's been 2 or 3 months.
So if it's one of those things, it's like you're interested in the true crime part and wanting to know about what happened, this is great.
And we have a new logo now.
Yes. So
that I designed myself. And t-shirts coming soon.
If only I remember to buy the dye.
That's right, guys. We're having some merch dropping soon. So keep an eye on that. And then we also have another exciting announcement. We are going to be doing a live show.
Spooky.
It's spooky time. That's right. We are in October, so we have about 3 more weeks until our live podcast is going to be, and we are teaming up with the Boobays. That is right. That's Caitlin and Josh. Shout out to those guys over there. If you guys have not checked out their podcast, you are missing out on horror of your life.
Yes. And that is, as Josh says, it is BOOBAES, because they are your boobays, not your babes.
Yes.
So,
bays, not babes.
Yeah. Bays. Yeah. Like a Baywatch.
Like Salt Bay.
Yeah. So, get it right. Get it together.
Yeah.
Show up for us.
Show up. It's going to be October 22nd.
Be there. Be square.
It's going to be a spooky on spooky opportunity. And we're not going to tell you what case we're going to be what we're going to be covering yet, because we want it to be a surprise. So
I will give a helpful hint, though. This case also has a movie.
Wow, who knew?
So
if we're partnering with Boobays, they cover horror movies. Guess what?
If you kind of put 2 and 2 together, like me and my dumb brain over here. But
yeah, just go through all of the hauntings that also also have have movies. There's quite a lot. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get into this true crime.
Yay!
Villisca baby.
Okay.
This is sad, actually. This case is prep. There is some trigger warning, so if you're listening, we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna get more in depth. So
Yes.
before we kind of cover things like light and airy, and we usually just try to, gloss over some of the more horrifying details. So remember, this will be a little deeper dive, but should still be
Yes.
all right.
Also, Debbie did some of the research on this one.
Yay!
So,
This is a Debbie-centric episode.
yay!
Yay! And then we'll do an Allie-centric episode next week.
I wonder what that one could be.
Well, we'll give you a hint. So this
It's
one
an
is
excellent case.
excellent case. I was gonna say this one's an that's the best pun. just think about it. All right, Allison.
Okay. So, the Villisca axe murders occurred between the evening of June 9th, 1912 and early morning of June 10th, 1912 in the town of Villisca, Iowa, in United States. It was the Moore family, which consisted of parents Josiah and Sarah and their 4 kids.
Herman, Mary, Arthur, and
Yes.
Paul.
Yes. So this was an affiliate family, and the Moores were well known and well liked within their community.
This is a high-profile case.
Yes. Which, like Debbie said, unfortunately remains a cold case. So, So on the June 9th, Mary Catherine Moore invited Ina and Lena.
Ina and Lena.
Ina
So
and
cute.
Lena.
I love those names.
I know.
Cuties.
How convenient that they rhyme. So she invited them to spend the night at their residence.
Mm-hmm.
That evening, the visiting girls and the Moore family attended their local church where the Moore family went, where they participated in Children's Day program, which Sarah had coordinated.
Oh, what a good mom.
I know.
They're going, just a little family going to church.
I would say I wish my mom did stuff like that, but she did.
What? She literally did.
But she did.
She did. But yeah, so they were just going to church.
Oh, how nice. So after the program ended at 9:30, the Moores and the
Stillinger.
Ina and Lena, the sisters, walked to the Moores' house, arriving between 9:45 to 10 at night. And at 7 a.m. the next day, which would have been June 10th, Mary, who happens to be the Moores' neighbor, became very concerned after she noticed that the family had not come out to do their morning chores. She then knocked on the Moores' door and realized that nobody answered. She tried to open the door and discovered that it was locked. Sarah then let the Moores' chickens out and called Ross Moore, which is Josiah's brother. Like Sarah, Moore received no response when he knocked on the door and shouted. He then unlocked the front door with his copy of the house key. And while Sarah stood at the front porch, he went into the parlor and opened the guest bedroom door, where he found Ina and Lena's bodies on the bed. Moore, which, like I said, is Ross, just his last name.
His brother, yeah.
Yeah, the brother, immediately told Sarah to call Hank Horton, which is Villisca's primary peace officer, who arrived shortly after. At this time, the 6 members of the Moore family and the 2 guests were found bludgeoned.
You messed up on this word last time. I thought you would get it. Bludgeoned. Again! Allison!
Hey, apparently not everyone learns from their mistakes. Apparently.
Good job, Allison.
At least I'm willing to accept it. Found them bludgeoned in the Moore residence. All 8 victims, including the 6 children, had severe head wounds from an axe. Their murder weapon, an axe belonging to Josiah, was found in the guest room where Ina and Lena were found. Doctors concluded that the murders had taken place between midnight and 5 a.m. 2 spent cigarettes in the attic suggested that the killer or killers patiently waited in the attic until the Moore family and two guests were asleep.
Mm-hmm.
These killers began in the master bedroom, where the Moore parents were sleeping.
Oh no.
Josiah received more blows from the axe than any other victim. His face had been cut to such an extent that his eyes were missing. The ceiling in his room had a gouge mark from when the murderer lifted the axe to murder him.
Oh no.
A lengthy investigation yielded several suspects, one of whom was tried twice. The first trial ended in a hung jury, and the second ended in acquittal. And like I said, and like Debbie said, this case remains unsolved.
Yeah. So I'm now going to get into kind of some more details about it and go over the different suspects in length. That way we can kind of go over it and kind of suss out who we think might be responsible. So like I said, this is actually a very high profile case. So these people were very well known in the community. So the people that did not like them, it was kind of apparent, you know? So surprisingly, there's actually a lot of suspects. So over time, like many possible suspects emerged, including a reverend. So Reverend George Kelly, a senator, Frank F. Jones, this guy named William Mansfield, this guy named Loving Mitchell, and then another Henry Lee Moore, of the Moore family.
Oh.
So very interesting. The one that was actually tried twice was George Kelly. And then, of course, again, the first one ended in a hung jury. And then the second trial, he was acquitted. So he was not found guilty of the murder itself. How convenient.
And as we know, in American Constitution, once you get acquitted, it's Dunskies.
If the glove don't fit, acquit. But yeah, so I'm going to go through all of our suspects now and kind of give you some more in-depth information. So of course, the first one I'm going to go over is basically the senator. So the first guy there, he's Senator Frank F. Jones. So you may be thinking, why would a senator want to murder a man, right? Well, so apparently Josiah Moore had a thing for making enemies. So he actually ended up working for the senator. He had worked for the senator for 7 years and literally had like worked with him and helped build up his business and then quit his job. So basically the senator was upset about it. And not only did he just quit, but a lot of people were saying that he quit due to, number one, the inconsistency and working long hours. So he was probably exhausted from the senator forcing him to work all these times. And then also, you know, maybe because he just wanted to become his rival. So that's right. Josiah Moore quit the company with his boss or with the senator and then stole his largest contract.
Oh my God.
Have you heard of John Deere? That's right.
Oh, dear.
John Deere Company.
Oh, dear.
So Josiah stole the largest account from him and then became his rival in business. So you're thinking, why would a senator want to murder him? That is why. Not only this, but like they had an outward showing that they hated each other. So like back then you kind of kept this stuff like under wraps because it wasn't socially acceptable to just be like out, you know, being mean to your neighbors or whatever. And this was a small community. At one point, they literally hated each other so much. They would walk across, like if they were walking down the street and they like saw each other, Josiah would cross to the other side of the street to avoid him.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that's probably why. And then also, there may have been a scandal involved.
Oh.
So Moore was also believed to have had an affair with Jones's vivacious daughter-in-law. So, So Josiah may have had a little side gig, if you know what I mean, before stealing his main gig.
Yikes.
But yeah. And there were actually numerous affairs that were very well known in this town. And so some people are saying that this was a scandal that possibly could have taken place. So again, like everybody knew that they had beef Like, they were like, this guy seems a little suspicious.
Who has the beef?
But yeah, and
They got
then
the beef.
literally again, they just started to hate each other. He was never convicted of any crime and was actually exonerated because, you know, he's a senator, number one. So he probably got out of it through that. I can't
Got
say
it
anything.
expunged.
Expunged.
Those
but
sponges, they soak just about anything up.
but it actually may have ruined his career. So even throughout all of these scandals, and not only the blatant public disrespect, but he found himself being harassed by these rumors that he murdered the Moors. And again, he was like an old man. He was 57 years old at the time. So a lot of people didn't even think, you know, that he could theoretically lift the axe or, you know, murder the people, like, physically. People were still like,
I mean, I feel like at 57, you're still like, like you're.
And you know, he was literally his eminence. Like, he was well known in the community. But
I don't know. I guess that's a question to ask Mike if he's able to lift an axe.
Oh, because he's 100 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so the senator ended up basically having his entire business ruined due to the murder itself. So even if he didn't commit the murder, his life was over after it. So due to all these murders and accusations and the litigation that was involved, even though he was exonerated, basically he had to get into retirement. Like, his entire life was ruined. Early retirement, thanks to the Moors. And, you know, a lot of, like, he was very, like, self-righteous and, like, you know, really had dreams for the future and, like, had all these ideas about what he was going to do. And they were tarnished. So that is for the senator. Up next is the suspect of Williams Mansfield. So, a lot of people, again, say that the senator, due to his age, possibly could not have actually murdered them himself. So, there is a statement saying that he may have hired somebody to murder them. So, that's where this guy comes in. So, basically, they're saying that this guy, Williams Mansfield, might have been, you know, hired by him, or someone might have been taking money under the table to commit this murder for him. Again, you know, it's all politics, right? So that's interesting.
I don't see anybody taking money under the table.
There's no money under there?
No.
Oh, dang. Well, too bad we're not senators, because if we were senators, they're right down there.
Oh, man.
But yeah, so this was actually a theory from James Wilkerson. He was an agent of the renowned Burns Detective Agency, and he actually announced in 1916, correct, that's 2 years after the murder, that Jones had hired a killer by the name of William Mansfield to murder the man who had humiliated him and ruined his career. So Wilkerson, who wasn't a nuisance himself to the Jones, was actually trying to secure a re-election to the state Senate. So that might be why he started spreading this rumor about Williams Mansfield being hired to murder the family. Again, for his own gain.
Can you tell how I was in school?
But yeah, and again, he eventually succeeded in having a grand jury convened to consider the evidence he had gathered. It was actually able to show that Mansfield was the type of person who could have committed the murder in 1912.
Welcome to One Star Rewind, a new podcast about those dreaded one-star reviews that every business owner hates to receive, but yet every customer loves to read. During this podcast, we will peel back that one-star review to better understand how it happened, when it happened, and what the business owner is doing after receiving that one-star review. This podcast will be about love, hate, and laughter. On One Star Rewind, we will meet with real business owners who will tell their stories and how they do rely on reviews for their business. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or download us at roguemedianetwork.com. Please subscribe, but only rate and review for not a 1-star review. Join us each time for a new review and a new story.
Heroes, gonna tell you about frozen heroes, gonna tell you about.
Hey, I'm Zach,
And I'm Mike.
and we have a fantastic new podcast to tell you about. Bros, Foes, and Heroes. It's the two of us looking into the world of comics, breaking down some characters that you may have never heard of, and some that are just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, so Zach comes up with a character each time, and I go into it just completely blind. I don't know who this person is or what their abilities are or anything, and basically I guess we kind of go over their origin story and just some of the ridiculous stuff that maybe, especially Golden Age stuff.
Oh, Golden Age stuff is always the best, and we will make sure to highlight all of the shenanigans and just absolute weirdness of everything.
Yeah, that's right. So subscribe today and follow us on Instagram at Bros Foes Heroes.
And if you don't, I know where you live. Not really, but please subscribe.
Frozen heroes, gonna tell you about frozen heroes, gonna tell you about.
Hi, this is Sarah,
And I'm Carter.
and this is Some of Our Thoughts.
We're two Southern sommeliers, and we want to share everything we love and know about wine. We started hanging out during quarantine and cooking and drinking and listening to music, and we just thought this would be a great way to bring everything we know to you guys.
We will make wine knowledge and food pairings easy and approachable. So put on your favorite vinyl, grab your favorite glass of wine, tune into our show, and let's have some fun.
Wine and vinyl. So check us out on roguemedianetwork.com or wherever you get your favorite podcast. We'll be talking about a lot.
Do you want to know why he thought he might have been the person that committed the murder in 1912?
Because he's not 57 and he knows how to wield an axe.
Well, in 1914, Mansfield was the chief suspect in the axe murders of his own wife, her parents, and his child in Blue Island, Illinois. So, this William Mansfield guy is starting to shape up, right? However, according to his alibi, he has a solid case because on his time clock, it shows that William Mansfield was on the clock working several hundred miles away the date the attacks happened. So there goes the whole case against William Mansfield. So he might have been a terrible person, but could he have actually committed this murder?
I mean, you can be on the time clock and not be at the
Be working?
job.
But
How do you think I get paid?
Yeah, well,
Just kidding.
Allison.
Just kidding, Corey. I definitely don't do that. I'm definitely here.
Yeah, but again, a lot of locals thought he was guilty. And even the Stillingers' parents themselves, the girl's parents, believed that he was the one responsible. And they were the ones that believed. So now that we've covered William, we are going to be moving on to our third suspect of the evening. That is Andrew Sawyer. So, every transient and otherwise unaccounted for stranger was a suspect back in the day for this murder. So that's where Andrew Sawyer comes in. So there's actually no real evidence that links Sawyer to the crime, but his name actually came up often in the grand jury testimonies. So according to Thomas Dyer of Burlington, Iowa, there was actually a bridge foreman and pile driver for the Burlington Railroad. Sawyer approached his crew at the Creston at 6 p.m. or 6 a.m., excuse me. Gotta have the timing right. At 6 a.m. on the morning the murders were discovered. Again, as we previously mentioned, the murders were said to have happened between midnight and 5 a.m. So if he's coming up to the bridge at 6 a.m., that gives him plenty of time to have gone and committed the murder and then be fleeing to this dock to try and leave out of Burlington, Iowa.
Oh.
So it was saying that he was clean-shaven and wearing a brown suit when he arrived. However, his shoes were covered in mud, in quotation marks, is what they said they saw. And his pants were wet all the way up to his knees.
What the heck?
So what? He actually asked them for employment, and the bridge guy was like, yeah, we actually need an extra man. And then he was given a job on the spot so he could go out on the ship. Isn't that crazy?
Sounds oddly familiar.
Yeah. And so Dyer then testified later that evening that when the crew actually reached the city that they were going to on this boat, that he saw in the newspaper about the murder. So, and he said that was the first time he'd read about it. But again, the timing isn't adding up.
That's a little sus.
Yeah, why would you just walk up to this guy and be like, yes, I need a job right now, this instant. Let me get on your boat and get out of this city.
Yikes.
Little shady. But yeah, and he said one of the other guys on the ship said that he was not very interested in the newspaper because it had the story of the murder in it. When at this time, everybody was obsessed with it because things like this did not happen. A murder of 8 people. Remember, 6 of these 8 people are children.
That's what I don't understand. Why are people...
Mm-hmm.
Listen, if you're going to be a psychopath, cool. But don't be such a psychopath that you're killing children.
Yes, exactly.
What did the children ever do to you?
And so Sawyer reportedly told Dyer that he had been in Villisca that Sunday night and had heard of the murders before reading it in the newspaper. So,
how did he hear?
It would have been that night, but how would he have been there that night?
How would have he heard about the murders that night if they didn't happen until a few hours later?
And so he was afraid of being taken as a suspect. That's when he had left and gone to Creston.
That doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make any sense. So he's contradicting himself. And then Dyer was suspicious and actually turned Sawyer, the guy, over to the sheriff on June 18th of 1912. So just days after. He was like, this guy seems a little fishy. We kind of picked him up on this boat. We're going to give him back to you guys. Good luck.
A little fishy
later,
on a boat.
Fishy on the boat. You like that? But later, Sawyer was dismissed as a suspect in the case when officials learned that he could actually prove he was in Osceola, Iowa, the night of the murders. So he was not actually in Villisca the night of the murders.
But then how did he hear about the murders the night before they actually occurred?
Well, he has an alibi. So eventually he actually had been arrested for vagrancy there in Osceola. Osceola? I'm sorry, Iowans, if I'm mispronouncing this. And the sheriff had a record of putting him on a train at approximately 11 p.m. that evening. So there's his solid alibi. It was literally a sheriff because he had gotten arrested. So it definitely could not have been our guy, Andrew Sawyer.
Oddly enough, that name sounds familiar. I wonder if he could share a name with another.
Dun, dun, dun. Well, now we're going to be moving on to the Reverend.
Oh.
So you may be thinking, a Reverend is a suspect in a murder? So this is Reverend George Kelly again. So Kelly was a traveling minister that was in town the night of the murders. Kelly was described as a peculiar man, reportedly suffering from a mental breakdown. So that's fun. He often had mental breakdowns as an adolescent, and that kind of like followed him into it. However, he had given himself over to the Lord and had said that he basically had repented and was no longer, and that through finding God, he had helped get over his mental illnesses, basically, from his childhood.
I swear I saw this somewhere, and like I'm pretty sure like some TV channel has it that talks about this case.
Ooh.
I don't remember. It's not on Hulu.
No, not Hulu. But yeah, so as an adult, he was also accused of being a peeping Tom on young girls.
Oh?
So doesn't that seem to fit the MO of the evening? 4 children, 2 extra little girls, all in one house.
Yeah.
So, he was accused of peeping on women and girls, and he actually had asked many of them to pose nude for him. Disgusting.
Why? Again, they're children.
Mm-hmm. So on June 8th of 1912, he came to Villisca to teach at those Children's Day services. He was at the Children's Day services that the entire Moore family and the Stillinger children attended. He was there, and listen to this, and which the Moore family had attended the next day on June 9th. Well, he was there that weekend. So, but it is said that he left town early that afternoon, which was hours before the bodies were discovered. So, he was just there for a traveling reverend who had a known thing for peeping on children and women. And then in the weeks that followed, he actually displayed a fascination with the case. And he actually wrote many letters to police, investigators, and the family of the deceased. What do they always say about these type of men trying to inject themselves in these investigations?
They're typically the ones.
That did it. So this man was trying to send all these letters to the investigators, trying to figure it out, which obviously aroused suspicion and is what was trying to get him involved. So the cops were like, well, we didn't really think about this guy at first, but now that you mention it. So that's great.
Can I just say, I don't condone, again, if you're going to be a psychopath, cool. But I don't condone people doing that to other people. But when it comes to children, why? If you're going to get caught doing it, it might as well just be a grown-ass, sorry for the word, but it might as well just be a grown-ass adult.
Yeah, well.
Because it's like, what did the kids don't understand what that, like, what that is. Kids don't understand, they don't have the concept of what's happening to them.
Yeah, and as a parent, imagine that. Like, you let your children go and stay the night at their friend's house and something happens.
Exactly.
Like, that, never be able to get over that.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, and then again, John was the one, or Josiah, excuse me, was the one that received the most trauma. So remember, they started in the master bedroom, so they killed the parents first. And Josiah was the one that had the most blunt force trauma.
See, like,
so a bunch of people think it was targeted specifically for Josiah, and that the kids were just happenstance.
Again, if you're gonna commit murder like that, and you start it with the parents, just stop.
But it was also shown that all of the children were sleeping when they were murdered, except for one of the Stillinger girls. She was the one that had defensive wounds that were found. So all the children were asleep. So it's not even like they witnessed the murder or anything. So again, a lot of people think it was like wiping out a lineage, and then the Stillinger girls, they didn't know that they were there, so it caught them by surprise, which is why they were awake, which is then why the Stillinger girl is the only one that had defensive wounds. She had awoke during the rest of the murders.
It's just...
Anyway.
Leave the kids
alone. But anyway... Back to Mr. Reverend George Kelly. I'm not even going to call him Reverend anymore. I'm just going to say Kelly. Kelly actually wrote in and had told them that he replied in detail that he had actually heard sounds and might have even possibly witnessed this murder.
So he was there or in some way.
Mm-hmm. So his known mental illness actually made authorities question whether or not he could have committed these murders and was just imagining his account or was being, again, mentally ill. There are people that pull this kind of stuff in law enforcement all the time. And then in 1914, 2 years after the murders, Kelly was arrested for sending obscene material through the mail. He was sent to St. Elizabeth's Hospital, the National Mental Health Hospital in Washington, D.C., and investigators speculated again that Kelly could be the murderer of the Moore family, but there was no evidence that could actually place him there or any other information. And again, due to his mental health, they did not think he was reliable on his own as a suspect, much less reliable as a to rely an account to the.
He's the one that got tried twice?
No.
No?
Wait, hold on. Let me see. Who was it? Yes, he was the one that was tried twice. George Kelly. He was arrested for the Villisca murders after this. Police obtained the confession for him. Remember, he was saying that he was there, had heard the noises, and seen it. So he obtained a confession, but it followed many hours of interrogation, and Kelly later recanted. And so after those 2 separate trials, that's when he was acquitted. So yes, he did both of them. And he confessed, but you know how police often coerce them into, creating confessions. And it was just something they were trying to basically, mark off their lists. And, police literally might be torturing people to get this information or get them to confess.
See, I could understand him being the suspect or even being guilty because of his mental illness.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the cops could have taken advantage of it to get the confession.
So I can see, where it comes, but it's also, yikes.
Yeah, it's just a yikes
That's just a whole hot mess situation.
Yes, but wait, there's more.
Oh, no.
So, and by more, I mean Henry Lee Moore. Henry Lee Moore is the next suspect. So he is a suspected serial killer. Not necessarily related to the Slain Moore family. They just have the same last name, so it's kind of funny.
Can I also just say that those pictures, from an angle,
this is terrifying.
From an angle, it looks like the children are straight ghosts.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, it was 1912, so I don't think photographs were that developed. We'll post pictures of the children. So you guys can see a picture of them when they were alive, but it's very sad. So Henry Lee Moore was actually convicted of the axe murder, which is fitting. If you didn't know, this is the axe murder house because they were murdered with an axe. So Henry Lee Moore was convicted of the axe murdering of his own mother and his grandmother several months after the murders in Villisca. So he had already committed 2 similar axe murderings. So it would not have been, against his MO. Henry Moore can also be considered a suspect, but the case still remains open because, again, there's not really anything tying him to the Villisca or tying him to the area, and there's no forward evidence. Again, it was just he had murdered people with an axe.
And it fits.
So that is Henry Lee Moore.
If the shoe fits.
If the axe fits.
Oh no,
that's not
if
good.
The axe fits.
Oh no.
So what do we do with Waco Axe?
Waco Axe Co? We're not bringing them into this. Not everybody likes axes or murderers.
Thomas.
Anyway,
just kidding. Love you, Thomas.
So up next we have one more suspect, and then this will be our final suspect. And then we can kind of go over the case again and see what are our thoughts and feelings. So the last one is Sam Moyer. It's Moyer. So at the inquest, it was reported that Sam Moyer, who is also, to be blanked, Josiah's brother-in-law. So again, this was related. He actually often threatened to kill Josiah. And I mean, they were like brother-in-laws, so I mean, I think you could joke and be like, hey, I'm gonna murder you. But there was facts that Sam had threatened to kill Josiah Moore. However, upon further investigation, his alibi cleared him of the crime. But he was questioned. Because, I mean, I don't know how many times you can tell your brother-in-law you're going to kill them, and then if your brother-in-law ends up dead, what's going to happen?
It seems a little suspicious.
That seems a little suspicious.
It seems odd. Very odd.
But that is right. So, that is all of the suspects. And then again, they had their funeral, and their funeral procession was made of 50 carriages. So when I say that this was like one of the like high profile cases of the day, this was like the high profile case of the day. 8 people dead. This had not happened in this community before. And at one point they were just kind of throwing suspect. It's like where you throw it against the wall and see what sticks. So after going through all the counts of the suspects, of course, one of the most notable could be George Kelly. But after his acquittal, I mean, literally 2 trials, we're still stuck in a cold case as of this time.
That's yikes. Like, how do you deal with that?
I know, that's so.
Because, I mean, some of them you like are people that you would trust.
Mm-hmm.
So these, like, they come from, I mean, all of them come from respected positions in some way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a relative, the reverend, or the senator, like, they literally come from a respected position in one way or another.
So it's people abusing their power.
Pretty much, yeah.
To hurt innocent people.
Like,
I mean, Josiah may not have been all that innocent, but children.
But
his wife even.
Yeah, like what are the kids, like their own 4 kids, and if you want to get payback on the family and wipe out that whole family, but why Ina and Lena?
Yeah, why Ina and Lena? And that's still what people question to this day. The Stillinger family is still not even sure. You can go and actually see Ina and Lena's headstones in the Villisca Cemetery. They have them down there. Lena was 1900 to 1912. She was 12 years old. And Ina, 1903 to 1912. She was 7 years old. Or 8 years old.
Yeah, and even at that point, they're too young. Like, okay, the 12-year-old, she has a little bit more of an understanding of that, but
she was still staying the night at her friend's house.
They went over to hang out at their friends. Like, what did they have to do with any of this?
Yep, and that's how we get into the hauntings.
Yikes.
So of course you have to remember that this case, again, is very, very hard to go over because it's children, and the house itself actually, as we called it earlier, a multi-hat. It went through a many of things.
Yes.
So the house itself actually was like a theater, a courthouse. It was used for so many things. And a lot of people still believe that now their ghosts are there until this day, just wandering around, just trying to live their best life. Afterlife.
Yeah.
Best afterlife.
And you know what's interesting is that, like, we were talking about who, I'm probably jumping ahead, but who we think it would be. If I honestly think, after hearing that, I would think it would be the Reverend.
I mean, again, he was there, left.
And I know we talked about this last episode.
And he was mentally ill.
Yeah.
He had been known for peeping in on people.
So that, and then like I said, we talked about this last episode, and we touched on it this time, but one of the Stillinger sisters had defensive wounds on her.
Yeah, so she was the only one that had been found.
It was also said, and again, this is for those people that need the trigger warning before I go ahead. If you want to skip, this is the part you'd want to skip.
Yes.
But she was found
with her dress up.
With her dress up to her hips and her underwear down to her ankles.
Mm-hmm. And again, that was just one of the accounts. So
yeah, and so that's that with the information of the Reverend is what makes me think it's him because
and was targeted.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because why else would anything like that seems to line up pretty
With the
well
MO again.
Yeah. And I understand
So they're like
too.
the two paths, like were they going after Josiah and his family was left in the wake, including the Stillingers, or was it a targeted attack on possibly even one of the girls?
Yeah.
And then the rest of the family just again was collateral.
Yeah.
Sadly.
But either way, you have to look at it. Either the kids, especially the Stillinger sisters, somebody was collateral.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was the two girls or everybody else.
Yeah, because it was said that they found her lying like crosswise on the bed. So like again, it was obvious that she was either awake or something happened. But it was
like,
yeah. Anyway, so that happened there, and again, we can't understand what was going through these people's heads in this moment. And there are so many suspects in this case. I'm sure they did their due diligence.
Yeah.
And yet it still remains a cold case.
It could have been, a montage of just about everything. Because
that's true. And again, they still don't know if it was a single killer or killers.
Yeah, multiple. So it could have been one of those things that, maybe all 6 of them had a part to play in it.
Yeah.
And, let certain people have a part of actually physically doing the killing. Maybe it was like the senator said that he paid somebody. So maybe that was his way of keeping his hands semi-clean.
I mean, it still ruined his career, so.
But, there's so many possibilities.
Yeah, there's so many possibilities. But yeah, so that's everything for the Villisca axe murders. Again, if you guys know anything, feel free to reach out. Most of this information I actually found from iowa.gov and or iowacoldcases.org as well. So make sure and go there. And again, if there know any resources, reach out to local authorities. I know this happened hundreds of years ago.
It was
100 years ago.
Yeah, it was 1912.
1912.
So 110
so
years
120 years ago, right? It's 2022. No, 10, you're right.
Yeah, 110.
Yeah. It was 110 years ago. But if you know anything, feel free to reach out to the local Iowa government and police officers and, just get involved. And
it's never too
don't
late
forget about them.
Yeah, it's never too late to clear something like this. And I'm sure if any one of those families' lineage still exists, I'm sure they would appreciate knowing who killed their family, who killed parts of their history.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, when I was doing research for this, last month, or not last month, but in May of 2022, as we mentioned, the house was used for multitude of things. The house itself was a courthouse at one point. They actually decided to hold court in the Villisca House. So that's right. They, back in May of 2022, they held court with a local judge, and they actually worked on passing some bills, and basically just held court at the house.
That's kind of cool, though.
So it's kind of cool. So they opened it back up. So again, they're still trying to make this known to the public, kind of give more transparency on it, keep it in the eyes of people, and this is something that is a part of their history, and the house itself. As one of the most haunted locations in Iowa. It's important to continue to use it. And again, keep it in the community and being used for the community. So I thought that was very interesting.
That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, I found that on their Channel 8. It was like CBS Channel 8. But yeah, after 100, it was like 151 years they got in there. So
dang,
that's pretty cool. But yeah. Again, I want to end it off with one of the quotes of one of the ladies. So one of the people that takes care of the house, her name is Martha. So she actually doesn't like to talk about ghost sightings, and she's not one for the paranormal. She has, however, shared this comment. She said, "I feel like there's something there. If indeed there are spirits, you have to realize that 6 of them are children. I don't know if the murderer still exists there, but there have been a few things that have happened that aren't exactly calming. But I don't like to dwell on it. And then, they also, now host, you can stay there. It's actually a haunted hotel. They just recently had court there. So it is still a functioning house. And if you're interested, you and 6 of your friends, or 6 or fewer of your friends, can pay $428 and go stay the night there.
Yes. And
maybe you can do some investigating on your own, both paranormal and true crime.
And, of course, they do have their daytime tour hours, which is Tuesday through Sundays between 1 and 3:30. No pre-booking is required. Tours are offered at $10 for adults and $5 for children.
Last time we were like, why would you bring your children here?
I know.
Go listen to that episode. It's still very interesting.
And then, of course, to book an overnight stay, you can call their number, which is 712-621-1530.
All right. Well, that's all for this episode. I hope you guys liked our true crime edition. Or as we're calling it now, hauntingly true crime. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. Let's get spooky, guys. It's October, and we'll get into more as we continue.
See y'all later.
Bye.
You've been listening to The Poltergals,
A Rogue Media Network podcast.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.